adolescence, I had to stress that never being less than being excellent is the motto I follow. For throttle, I gotta be some sort of testament. If I strive to do it, be the best at it. So testing this is rather pointless.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Let us discuss the Pro Wrestling Tees data breach, which I have not seen being discussed anywhere, even though it's a big deal due to the holiday season. You probably should be paying more attention to this, especially if you're the kind of person who buys merchandise. So what happened? Well, we're going to read an article from Daily DDT. I think it did a pretty good job of summarizing what occurred. But the long and the short of it is that Pro Wrestling Tees had a data breach in November, and it took them a month to tell people about it. And what they did is they sent people physical letters, not emails, but physical letters to inform them of the data breach. And it took about a month and a half. So that means their credit card, debit card information was available for misuse for up to 4 to 6 weeks before anybody was ever told. And then the correspondence didn't come from Pro Wrestling Tees, but it actually was made public by a very big Twitter account called Toru Yano Fan Account. So we're going to talk about that today. And why do you believe that nobody is talking about Pro Wrestling Tees or holding Pro Wrestling Tees accountable for this data breach? Well, let's talk about it. So, from Daily DDT. Pro Wrestling Tees hit by a data breach in November and informs customers in December. Pro Wrestling Tees, popular merchandiser in the professional wrestling industry, was hit by a data breach on November the 1st. Customers were informed of the letter in December, more than 1 month after the company was informed of the data breach. Social media started buzzing on Saturday, December the 18th, when the full letter was posted online. The letter was signed by Ryan Barkin, the creator and owner of Pro Wrestling Tees, and provides more information about the breach itself, what the company is doing in response, and what steps the customers should take. The letter reads, on November the 1st, 2021, Pro Wrestling Tees was informed by law enforcement that a small portion of our customers' credit card numbers had been compromised. The letter states, as posted by Toru Yano Fan Account on Twitter. We immediately conducted an extensive investigation of our system and concluded that a malware virus was the source of the breach. Working with a sophisticated forensic vendor, we have removed the malware virus from our system. We did not find any evidence that any current individual personal information was compromised. All right, so it says customers took to social media to question why the company decided to send the mailed correspondence instead of addressing the issue with an online announcement or via email when the breach was first noticed in November. Pro Wrestling Tees has been active across all its social media channels since November the 1st, posting product updates and announcements at a regular cadence. However, the channels do not have any mention of the data breach in any form. The company has yet to comment on the matter, as it has become known from fans who are concerned about the status of their information. Ransomware attacks have been on the rise in recent years. According to Harvard Business Review, ransomware attacks decreased 150% in 2020 as compared to 2019. A common occurrence when a company is impacted is to alert its customers of the breach immediately, giving them the opportunity to take action to protect their information and assets. Pro Wrestling Tees is the official vendor of the AEW store and features merchandise from many independent names and more recognizable stars such as Stone Cold Steve Austin, Johnny Gargano, and Bret Hart. So, that is, I think, a really good summary of what occurred. So Toru Yano Fan Account has really been burning the candle at both ends on this thing. He really has been going in. Well, he, she, they, who have been going in on this. And I really appreciate this account for paying attention. Now, personally, do I buy things from Pro Wrestling Tees? No. I am very suspicious about buying stuff online. I mean, I really am. For this very reason. You buy stuff online, it is a completely different economy than what most people are used to. Even if you've been going cashless for a long time now, this is always a threat that is out there. And I can't blame Pro Wrestling Tees for the data breach. I mean, it happens. People hack into things. There's all kinds of stuff that takes place. The criticism comes in two ways. One, in how the company chose to deal with it. Two, the lack of, transparency. in the whole ordeal. And I guess if you're going to add a third one, the lack of wrestling journalists who are actually talking about this. I couldn't imagine if the WWE shop had a data breach and thousands of people had their accounts quite possibly affected, their personal information quite possibly affected, and people who want information are not getting it. So I can't imagine that happening. So Toriano fan account, this is what he says. So Sean Ross Sapp directly asked Ryan Barkin, and from what I'm gathering, didn't get anything substantial. Unbelievable. Pro Wrestling Tees really is just going to sweep this under the rug. I mean, their big Wrestle Kingdom sale is in 2 weeks. Can't fuck that up now, can we? So another account, Mr. Warren Hayes, who, tweets very odd things, but this tweet thread is actually pretty good. This is what he said. Any media want to pick up this outside of the fans react to Pro Wrestling Tees data breach? Here's a good opportunity to put that journalism to call some PWT's contacts. When did the breach happen? How many customers are affected? Are AEW Shop and AEW Crate customers affected? What details were breached? Were passwords breached? Did PayPal users get their information leaked? Did you conduct a security audit? Who conducted the security audit? What are the results of the security audit? What has been in place to secure transactions in the future? Why did it take so long to inform users? Why did you only send information through traditional mail and not email? Why did you not release a statement advising your customers of the breach as soon as you knew? I think those questions are a good start. So a blue check mark, Danny Burkholter responded, and since many of the wrestling media who might cover this story also sell their own merch on Pro Wrestling Tees, hopefully they'll remember to disclose that. Their most loyal readers and listeners, loyal enough to buy merchandise and rep the brand publicly, are potentially at risk here. And I think you answered your own question. Maybe they're not going to talk about anything, and it'll be easy for me to say because they're in league with AEW and, the tentacles of Tony Khan. It's like, because it's a conspiracy theory. I think that most people just don't want their business affected. It's simple. They have no incentive to tell people when it happened because all they're going to say is, well, we caught it before anything really bad occurred. But no, you can go through the Twitter and see that some people really did have their accounts affected, and maybe the banks caught it or something else. So let's go through Twitter to see what other people are saying. So someone breached Pro Wrestling Tees a while ago and stole a bunch of credit card information, and Pro Wrestling Tees decided to alert their customers by sending them a letter in the mail rather than addressing it immediately with emails and social media. Couldn't lose those holiday sales. Absolutely not. Couldn't do that. It's unacceptable that Pro Wrestling Tees isn't communicating more openly about a data breach that affecting its customers. It's the bare minimum for a company. Absolutely. This is the bare minimum. It's putting out a public statement saying what occurred, how it occurred, and what you're going to do about it. And then apologizing to the people and saying, hey, we're probably going to ship you some free merchandise or something. Just anything to stop the bad public relations of this whole ordeal. They're just letting it fester. The guy got the letter on the 18th. It's the 21st, the 22nd. It's crazy. In the time, this is Al Getz, who does a pretty good wrestling. He's a historian, does charting the territories. It's pretty cool. He says, in the time it took Pro Wrestling Tees to notify their customers of the data breach, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla would have been able to edit, produce, and ship 2 of their shows. It says, what a maneuver by Pro Wrestling Tees to not communicate about this. Okay, I'm done, I swear. And then Al Getz asks another good question. Have any wrestlers announced their cutting ties with Pro Wrestling Tees? Now that I have not seen. I think most of the wrestlers are just now finding out. I did see some wrestlers that were saying, look, I'm just catching up on this thing. And they were catching up via Reddit. They were reading Reddit threads about it. Amazing. This stuff is embarrassing. Somebody said support your local wrestling merch bootlegger. Johnny Gargano launched his Pro Wrestling Tees store in December. December the 10th, I believe. So about a month and a couple of days after the original breach. Weird. This now, of course, a bunch of people are mad about Pro Wrestling Tees and how they didn't like it anyway and all that kind of stuff. It says the Pro Wrestling Tees situation and rep has me a bit upset. Being in the wrestling business, trying to appeal to the fans in the U.S. during COVID and beyond, I used the site to make a small amount of money to help with extra expenses. Yeah, that's unfortunate. It says, did anyone else get a letter from Pro Wrestling Tees? What the fuck is going on? I guess that explains why I had to cancel my card a month or two ago. And then somebody says, there's been a data breach at Pro Wrestling Tees. Credit card information has been compromised. Customers are receiving letters like this one. It's the Toru Yano fan account letter. If you've purchased anything from Pro Wrestling Tees lately, be careful. This is embarrassing. It is truly incredible how often and how badly the wrestling community has allowed Pro Wrestling Tees to fuck up. But this is a big fuck up. So this is tremendous. This is bad. This is all bad. Of course, people are asking these questions like, why are they sending email? Why are they sending traditional mail and not emails? But it's weird. Here's somebody. Pro Wrestling Tees was told by police on November the 1st that customer credit card information was stolen. I just was informed of this today, 49 days later. 3 weeks ago, the card I used had to be deactivated because someone tried using it for $500 gift cards. Wow. Somebody says, my card got stolen around Black Friday. $1,000 in attempted charges, some of which went through, and I had to open claims to get with my bank. Got a letter yesterday saying my info was compromised on November the 1st. Pro Wrestling Tees can go fuck itself. That guy has every right to be mad. How many credit cards need to be hacked before Pro Wrestling Tees makes a statement? The longer they stay silent, the less likely they are to survive this. Yeah, they're only making it worse. Pro Wrestling Tees seems not to be making an effort to publicize this. I have had some fairly significant fraudulent transactions on my bank account. If you use Pro Wrestling Tees, I'd recommend at least checking for any suspicious transactions from your bank account. Yes. Oh, somebody took it to the next level. Hey, Tony Khan, can you confirm if any AEW customers' data was compromised as a result of the Pro Wrestling Tees data hack? And if so, when did AEW find out about it? Thanks. You think Tony Khan, he can tweet at Fox News. Is he going to tweet about this? We'll have to see. It's legitimately infuriating seeing Pro Wrestling Tees not address this or warn people publicly. The Reddit thread has countless examples of fraudulent purchases due to the breach. Somebody says, this is a Toriano fan account. Did anyone else get a letter from Pro Wrestling Tees about the data breach in November? Last month, my info kept getting stolen for fraudulent Uber charges, and I remember a few people saying they had their car stolen for other stuff. Is it possible that's our culprit? It's entirely possible. Look, these things happen. When you buy things online, it is, the threat is real. That's why I've been very, very careful about things online. And as usual, when you get in trouble for anything, everything comes in. So this is apparently Ryan Barkin, the owner, creator of Pro Wrestling Tees, getting into a tiff with a fan online about his store being destroyed or attacked or something like that. And he was, of course, interrogated about whether he cares about Black lives. It reads thusly: Pro Wrestling Tees is blocking anyone who asks these questions. They don't care about Black lives. Don't give them your black dollars. I know I won't. Ryan Barkin responded, honestly, I did not block you because of your tweet. I never saw it. I blocked you because you liked someone else's tweet I felt was too far. I'm not sure what else there is to say. Blocking out the hate was easier. I'm sorry if my initial tweet was insensitive. I care about everything. So what was the initial tweet? The initial tweet was, quote, Spent all day worrying about our store being destroyed in Chicago, and I completely forgot today is our 7-year anniversary for Pro Wrestling Tees. Sad anniversary. This the fan that he was arguing with said, quote, "Your building will be fine. Have you donated any time or money to Black liberation projects? Have you checked on your Black employees? Have you said a single thing about where you stand on the human rights violations happening?" And then it led to the block. So Ryan Barkin continues, "Yesterday, we posted a photo about our store being boarded up because of the looting happening to our business. My post was tone deaf. I apologize. Black Lives Matter. I've never felt differently. We have many Black employees. We contribute to many Black charities. I apologize again. In response to anyone who has been blocked, this is how I deal with stress. Between the virus and the looting, it's been so stressful. I understand it's been stressful for those who have to deal with this police brutality. If anyone was blocked, I will unblock them. Post their Twitter name. Please help me. Heaven forbid you stop people from robbing our store." What the Jesus H. Christ. Jesus Christ. Oh my goodness. Oof. Back to the data breaches. So somebody says, so if the Pro Wrestling Tees data breach happened in November, why did they wait until now to inform everyone via letter? Secondly, that's probably how I lost $163 that was spent at Walmart since somebody somehow got my card information. This is terrible. This is awful. This is awful stuff, man. This pro wrestling thing is a boondoggle. If you can't trust Pro Wrestling Tees to immediately tell you about a data breach, which potentially compromises your personal information, can you trust them when they say they've resolved the issue? I sure as hell wouldn't. This is tremendous. And yeah, they're still selling merchandise, and I haven't seen anybody say anything. Somebody said, this explains why I've had not one, but 2 credit cards with unauthorized transactions over the last month and a half. If you ordered from Pro Wrestling Tees recently, check your statements. Wow. Somebody says, it's just incredibly shocking that Pro Wrestling Tees decided to send physical letters rather than emails over the recent data breach, giving fraudsters an extended window to make use of the stolen information. Also, Pro Wrestling Tees can make some extra Christmas sales. Such callous behavior. Yeah. Somebody says, people are boycotting Pro Wrestling Tees but still swipe their credit card at Target. Hypocrites. Wait a minute. Now, people who do these, if you're a Target, you're going to get caught. You know, there's, I forget what it's called, but it's sort of a thing that happens pretty much every Christmas season where you'll get the double charges. You'll go to Target, get a guy your card, he'll swipe it twice. He's going to pocket some of that money or direct it to, his personal account. They've been doing this stuff for a long time. It's credit card fraud. A lot of people get fired at the holiday season for doing this stuff. But they get busted, and usually Target is professional enough to let people know that it occurred, and it wouldn't be like, hey, we waited a month to tell people. So somebody says, all right, who was looking at porn on the Pro Wrestling Tees company computers that resulted in a data breach? I swear if I get fraudulent charges on my account because I brought 2 pins and a Sandman tank top, I'm going to rip someone's head off. Somebody says, don't work with or give money to Pro Wrestling Tees. They enable abusers to continue making money in a business we've done everything we can to keep them out of. They don't value the safety of their customers or their private information, and also their t-shirts are made of sandpaper. Wow. Ooh. Wow. That's pretty amazing. Funny how when they do something really bad, like have a data breach and don't tell anybody, now all of a sudden they enable abusers and they're racists, right? Funny how that keeps happening. What's next? They're going to be called transphobes? I don't know, man. Somebody says, don't let Pro Wrestling Tees trick you into thinking they're innocent victims here. They knew about the breach and didn't disclose it until after they had your business. They are just as responsible for you getting scammed as the data breachers are. I would actually agree with that. Actually. Somebody says, Pro Wrestling Tees data breach in November explains why my credit card, Instagram, and emails were all hacked in a week span. Ooh. Wow. If you got your pro wrestling tee on November the 1st, it would have already started to fade by the time they told you all your data had been stolen. Wow. So now they make cheap gear. And I didn't hear none of this stuff about pro wrestling tees when everybody threw money out of the window to buy the new CM Punk shirt. When everybody was running around buying all the Hook gear, nobody was talking about how cheap and garbage the pro wrestling tees merchandise was. Now that it's a big deal that the company is full of shit, all of a sudden, oh, I hated them all the time anyway. They support abusers. They're racists. How do we get there? How did we get here? It's amazing. This is insane. Personally, I hope people realize that pro wrestling tees behavior should never have happened. They chose their own money over the customer's livelihood and safety. But hey, if waiting a month and your CC credit card information was still okay, consider yourself lucky. We got a lotto ticket stat. Somebody was tweeted out, pro wrestling tees have sent letters out alerting everyone who used their credit cards on their site that there has been a breach of information with some customers. Exactly why I don't use my personal credit card on their site. I got a letter. Wow. Somebody else tweeted out, so over Black Friday weekend, my credit card info was stolen and just about $3,000 was taken out of the account from various purchases. And now I got the letter from Pro Wrestling Tees data breach. It makes sense now. Thanks a lot, Pro Wrestling Tees. Oh, Jesus. Somebody says, oof, looks like I need to cancel my AEW crate. Big yikes. Pro Wrestling Tees should be transparent with everyone that there was a breach, not just those affected. A physical letter in 2021. Somebody says, thank God I never ordered anything off of Pro Wrestling Tees. Wrestling companies need to take action now and pull their merch from Pro Wrestling Tees. There's better places to go. Maybe. Somebody says rioters no longer content breaking Pro Wrestling Tees windows. Now they decide to physically and cyberly do it too. Stealing credit card info from Pro Wrestling Tees customers and finding out nothing but maxed out $200 and $300 limit credit cards and how much they spend on chicken nuggets. Don't want to be that kind of fan, but I will. If WWE had a data breach, every wrestling journalist website would be falling over themselves writing articles about how WWE is terrible, blah, blah, blah. Don't see many of at all covering Pro Wrestling Tees. Most are just saying whatever the letter said. And I looked it up. Most of them are just saying whatever the Toriano fan account letter said, that's what they pre-printed. They just retyped it. People doing an interview, doing some type of investigative journalism on this subject, didn't see anybody doing it. You know, it's not a sexy thing to talk about. It's more sexy to talk about, you know, what Ric Flair thinks of Bryan Danielson or what Hannibal thinks of The Miz. Nobody wants to talk about this thousands and thousands of dollars in damages done to people. And they need to file lawsuits. And I'm not seeing people talk about that. But all these people who need to file lawsuits, it need to be a class action lawsuit. Because they did tell you, but they told you like a week later. And if you got fraudulent charges on your account, you need to file a class action lawsuit against Pro Wrestling Tees and shut it down if you have to, you know. Come on, man. You have to be smarter than this. Let's do a couple of more and then I'll get you guys out of here. Somebody says, had to shut down my credit card because of a fraud charge just over a month ago, and now I'm seeing, but because I haven't received one, letters about Pro Wrestling Tees being hacked. Coincidence? Really need to do better about communicating this, never ordering from them again. And he added AEW. Somebody says, me checking Pro Wrestling Tees after hearing about the breach and then remembering that I had no stored payment methods. Wow, way to look out for your customers, Pro Wrestling Tees. Going to buy merch directly from wrestlers' promotions and going to give What a Maneuver a closer look. Pro Wrestling Tees with the data breach snail mail. The bad experiences outweigh the good with this company. I'm talking years of fumbles each time I've ordered. Pro Wrestling Tees doesn't have a voicemail service, but they do have a loop of Colt Cabana telling us that customer service is unavailable. Somebody says the way wrestling journalists won't report on the Pro Wrestling Tees issue because it's how their faves make money and they don't want to ruin their imaginary friendship with them. Ooh. So I got an alert on my phone saying that my card was used for $349 of stuff at Dillard's. Slight problem here. Well, I'm not at Dillard's. Reported it as fraud, blocked my card, and going to the bank here soon to get what I'll sorted out. This is so not what I needed today. And then he tweets later, so it turns out I was one of the people whose data got breached from Pro Wrestling Tees. They sent snail mail to tell everyone instead of email. And of course, I didn't get my notification till today when my card was already being used by someone else. Thanks, Pro Wrestling Tees. Wow. Pro Wrestling Tees waited for about a month to send me a letter that their shit got hacked and my cards have been stolen. I'm good. What kind of shit is that? Send me a fucking email next time, you fucking momos. Wow. Sounds like Pro Wrestling Tees had a major data breach. I've seen quite a few people say they've had recent with issues with fraudulent charges on cards. They've known for about 6 weeks and told no one, and they still haven't said anything publicly. I really would prefer if people just sued them. Sue these people, please. File a lawsuit, please. I'm surprised at the lack of wrestlers being approached and told not to use Pro Wrestling Tees. That's what I would expect. I would expect the big canceling of Pro Wrestling Tees by fans deluging their favorite wrestler like a CM Punk and saying, you need to pull your stuff from Pro Wrestling Tees immediately. But if I remember correctly, Pro Wrestling Tees is actually in Chicago. I think I just saw that their brick and mortar store, when they had one, I'm not sure if they still do, was attacked during the riots in Chicago. So maybe that's why, but I would think that the wrestlers would be the first ones to be, that you would put the pressure on. I would go straight for look, I don't really buy into the whole cancel culture thing, but this is a serious issue and it's the holiday season and certain people are spending almost their whole check on other folks. And now you got people getting robbed. It's been going on since November. So I definitely believe that the fans should do something. Class action lawsuit being one of them. Pressure some of the bigger vendors, some of the bigger contracts with Pro Wrestling Tees to back out. Somebody like CM Punk, who is a big SJW anyway, I will be sending him tweets like, why are your stuff still on Pro Wrestling Tees after they did this to their fan base, to the customer base? A lot of people was buying stuff from Pro Wrestling Tees. A lot of it was your stuff, and you're just going to sit back and be quiet about that? You have an opinion on the Texas abortion law. You don't have an opinion on Pro Wrestling Tees that's in your own fucking backyard? Huh. How could that be? Nah. This is nonsense, dog. This is nonsense, dog. Get it together. Get it together. Thank you guys for your time. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. Donate to the channel. Thank you guys, and I'll talk to you later.